Hello, everybody, and welcome to not the Universal Church of Truth, not any other sort of thing that you would have seen myself or Mary in previously. This is the first installment in a new video series we are hoping to continue doing called Theory Thursday. Welcome to Theory Thursday, everybody. The concept is very simple. It's Mary and I sitting here looking at an upcoming uh, thing, whatever we choose. We have the freedom to choose whatever we want because this is our show. And we're going to throw some theories out there. We're just going to sit here and we're going to spitball. And then when that thing comes out, we'll check back and we're going to see what we got right and what we got wrong. I said Mary's name earlier, so that's one half of the host, Mary. I am the other half of your host, Hunter, and I am recovering from a minor illness. So if I start hacking up a lung in the middle of this, if my voice breaks, if I sneeze or sniffle, please excuse me.
I do anything.
If I do literally anything, it's because my body is betraying me. So keep that in mind and don't hold it against me. All of that being said, today, tonight, this eve, this morning, whenever you're watching this on Thursday or Friday or Saturday or Sunday, we are discussing the Ant Man and the Wasp Quantumanium Mania trailer.
Wow, I already messed. Wow.
I already messed it
That's
up.
the name of the
I know.
movie.
I'm
Wow.
not qualified to do this. It was a good show. Goodbye. No, I'm kidding.
80 episodes.
Again, I'm gonna blame that on my failing health and say that we're, the brain. You know when you get sick and your brain is like a little, like a little icky. No, Mary's invincible. Um. Anyway, we're talking about Ant Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. The trailer just came out earlier this week, and it was chock full of all sorts of crazy creatures and characters and new worlds and settings and yada ba da ba da ba ba da ba. So, um, Mary, what theories jump out at you first when you're watching Ant Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, the trailer, the teaser trailer, as YouTube labels it? What are some thoughts you have? What are some predictions you have? What jumps out to you based on this footage?
Um, I mean, like plenty. I mean, some of the like side ones,
A
obviously.
lot.
Well, I mean, like, because it's Marvel, so it's gonna go into like a gazillion different directions no matter what. So I mean, you've got like Cassie Lang. Obviously, we know she's probably gonna be a young Avenger in the future, so she's gonna be set up in some way. And we kind of see her in a costume later on and whatnot. So she's gonna have her own little mini arc. Yeah,
We're
go
gonna
for it.
start writing these down so we remember them. Um, for clarification, Mary, are you saying you think this movie, by the end of it, will have set Cassie up as like a functioning superhero in the MCU, or do you think it's gonna end in a way where she's like has the potential to be a hero and has some superheroing experience, but isn't like a fully fledged hero with a name yet?
I guess I would go with that one. Kind of like where Kate Bishop left off in Hawkeye. Like everything's there and like the name is like half there, like they tease it, at the very end. So I think it's kind of like that. I think they're all gonna probably be at that point, and then like I don't know, somehow meet, and then do their little youthful stuff. And so I think option number two. I don't think she's gonna like full on your own thing. But I don't know because we are in the quantum realm, so lots of things could be crazy, Hunter.
Right.
You know, my general theory, I don't think it's overly unique, if at all. But Kang, also known as Jonathan Majors, because that's who I think of every time I see him. I just think of his actual name. He's great. Anyway,
He's
um,
fantastic.
I know. And so obviously they get sucked into the quantum realm. It's like horrible. Oh God, don't do that.
Mm.
But I think he wants something. He thinks Scott can steal it for him, which is an odd premise for me because even though I know it's part of my theory, because like why would Scott Lang in the quantum realm, when we're talking about Kang the Conqueror, why would he still be like a good thief to like use? Like it just seems like a different level. But
I do like that the Ant-Man movies are like really committed to this idea that the Ant-Man trilogy, no matter like how crazy or how insane it gets, or just Ant-Man, like Scott Lang as a character, his whole thing is heists. Like even in Endgame, they bring him in, and his whole thing is that he develops this like heist based idea. Um, and I do think that's funny that like even in a movie where they've all been sucked into the quantum realm and like the most insane things are about to be happening, they're still finding a way to like fit a heist in there like somehow.
I yeah. So I think, and again, how did Kang lose whatever it is? What's he doing? Like I thought he was good at stuff, lots of questions.
He
But I
is a
mean, I think there's a brief shot in the trailer, at least one, of something that looks like maybe some like fancy little device. Go for it.
um do you think that whatever he wants Scott to get or break into or get back or whatever is not an object but potentially a person? And maybe this is like Ravana got kidnapped by someone or she's like in stasis like she is in the comics, and he's like, they're prepped for me and like they're gonna be ready for Kang the Conqueror to come for Ravana, but if like Ant-Man is coming at them, like they don't even expect you, so you can just shrink down and go in and like get my wife back.
That's interesting. That's interesting. My question to that would be, how would that play into like the larger plot? Because what I see it happening is Ant-Man eventually does help him, whether or not it's purely by like force or he's like, oh, okay, there's redemption, we're gonna help him, and then the twist, obviously, it's that guy. Whether
Yeah.
it's that or not, but I think that's what's gonna happen. But then I think that's gonna obviously set the stage for what will be Avengers Kang Dynasty.
Right.
Because this is where I know we saw him as He Who Remains, and we got like a tease, but like this seems like the point we're gonna be like, okay, overall bad guy. Here's the front, not front, just the foundation of what other weird shit's gonna start happening. So that's why I question. I like your idea, but how would that, you don't know.
I Yeah, I don't know. My thought is I'm not 100% sure how Ravana gets from like point A to point B in terms of like where we see her in Loki, or it's still not super clear on like how that whole timeline gets reset at the end of Loki and what's going on with those characters or all of that stuff, and it's all very very confusing. Um but generally Kang's whole thing is that Ravana, like he sort of has like a Mr. Freeze thing going on where like a lot of his plots are based around this idea that he has this love of his life and he has to make sure the timeline goes in a way where like they end up together and she's not dying or she's not in like time stasis or like some weird situation. So again, that might factor more into Kang Dynasty, or like the MCU might just skip that plot altogether. Although I think it would be an interesting way to like differentiate him from Thanos, because they didn't do the whole like Thanos love arc, so they could do that with Kang. Um, but I don't know. I guess really quick to finish, and then Mary. Um, I think that we know Kang is a bad guy, and like Loki and Sylvie and whatnot, they were warned by He Who Remains, like, hey, there's this other guy named Kang, and like he's a bad guy, and like they know that. But good-hearted, good-willed, I want to believe in the best of people. I am a reformed criminal myself, Scott Lang, like encountering this guy who's like, well, I just love someone. You can understand, and he's like, I do understand. I myself am a reformed criminal who loves someone. Like I feel like that, and he doesn't have that prior like He Who Remains
Yeah,
encounter to like know.
yeah.
I truthfully have no idea how it relates to the bigger picture in this moment, but I could see that like being the route they take with his relationship with Kang. At least at first. I don't know how long the ruse continues, but now Mary.
Well, and I was gonna say, do you think, right? So with He Who Remains, we got very much a tease of variants of this bad guy character. mostly we know him as Kang the Conqueror. He's had other names in the comics like Immortus, whatever. There's like a kid version of him. It's great. But
And we do know that at some point he was Ramatut because
yeah,
Moon Knight kind of
yeah,
confirmed that low key.
yeah. So, but do we think that the guy, the Jonathan Majors that we meet in, in this movie, is he going to be the actual, let's say, assuming it's similar to structure of like the Infinity Saga, the big bad of like Secret Wars? Like, is it gonna be that this variant, or is this gonna be another He Who Remains and we go through them? Not necessarily in this film, but like,
That's a good question. I'm gonna say I think this is the variant that ends up becoming like the main bad guy of whether or not he's both Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, or whether or not they throw Doctor Doom in there, so whatever. But I do think this is the same variant, and I think that it is purely for like storytelling reasons. I do think we'll see other variants, especially in Kang Dynasty, Secret Wars, all of that fun stuff. But I think that they teed him up, and in the trailer he looks very comic book accurate in design, like right down to the blue helmet. He's got the like lines going down his. I don't know if they're going to be like scars in this version or what they are, but he's got the lines. He's got the purple and green. It's like it's actually impressively comic accurate. It makes me very happy. They seem to be introducing Chronopolis and his whole like there's too much of like classic comic book Kang that they're throwing in there for me to
yeah,
believe that they're going to introduce this version of the character that Jonathan Majors has described in interviews as like the warrior version of Kang, like the version who is ready to go out and like conquer. Um, and then throw that away after one movie and then introduce us to like an entirely new version in Kang Dynasty. The only way I could see them doing that is if like both versions are in this movie. But I don't know. At least I would hope that they don't like reset Kang every appearance.
no, I wasn't even thinking that as so much as like, I mean, with the tease that like this multiversal war between all the Kangs, that we got in Loki. Like, what if we got more teases like we did at the end of Loki that weren't necessarily, the main villains of movies, and we build up this weird little kind of collection of Kangs, and maybe this guy in, Ant-Man 3 is the one, and maybe this movie is a great way to set that up. He gets his own movie, he gets his own like focus on it, and we see his trajectory a bit better. But I do like the idea of there being a bunch of them. And maybe that's what the Kang Dynasty is. I don't know. There are just a lot of them. And they're having a great time. Hopefully. Or not hopefully. I don't know. But like I really liked that at the end of Loki. Like I really, 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 really liked that concept that they could play with it. Because with Thanos, we got bits and pieces of him till we got him in the movie, right? And then it was
Right.
like, oh, Thanos. And so the idea that we get like lots of bits and pieces, but they're just like can be anywhere and they could be different and they could die. They could, like, I don't know. I just think that that's fun. I think that's more of like an omnipresent
Right.
villain.
And I actually agree with you in that I think it would be fun, and I do think that it's possible we see a few variants in Quantumania. Um, It might even be that the Kang who's offering Scott like this heist and the Kang that we see like floating down who's super comic accurate are two different Kangs who just look the same. Like that's entirely possible. Um and I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Marvel notoriously does like the bait and switch in trailers, and
Yeah.
like the way they edit their trailers, a lot of times the scenes in the movie are not at all what they looked like they were
Yeah.
in the trailer. So I guess I'm keeping that in mind. But I would like to think that whoever the main Kang villain in this movie is carries over to Kang Dynasty, but along the way they bump into like all of these other Kangs
Yes.
that are
Yeah.
all wacky and crazy.
No,
But that's a good theory. I didn't even think about that.
I definitely agree that there should be like, I mean, I could have more than one, but like one or two, whatever, like fully, these are our villains, like these are the ones we care about the most, blah, blah, bring that into the big event ones. Because without that, it is like what's this villain doing? This is the 87th variant. So I do think having strong, maybe one, I don't know, to exist no matter what, and then others would be fun. I do like your point, though, that maybe the comic accurate Kang is not the other one that we see. And that's kind of a fun point. That's probably. Oh, but going back, I think he wants him to steal I'll just go with this theory, like some sort of item
Uh huh.
Kang needs to, be his full self.
Right.
Um, and whatever that is, I mean, I've seen the talk that it's like the forever crystal. He just fucks shit up with that, so that'd be cool. But I will say, question for you.
Okay.
Obviously, this movie has a lot to do with the quantum realm, which has been teased many times, even outside the Ant-Man films, obviously. How much do you think this is going to set the quantum realm, or the spot in the quantum realm that we're in, in the trailer, up for like a bigger purpose, presence, whatever, in the MCU, the multiverse saga?
Well, I'm glad you bring that up because this was actually one of the things I was sort of going to talk about. Um, First of all, I'll say I don't know how much this is a theory as it is just like an observation based on the trailer. Um, I think that the structure of the movie is more or less going to play out the same way it was structured in the trailer. Like I think I always find a way to bring this up, but I think very similar to like No Way Home, where the first act is him running from the law, and then it gets into like what the trailers really sort of promised the movie would be, or at least like what the rumors and hype was. I think it'll be similar. Like I think we're gonna get a first act that explores, oh, this is what Scott Lang's life is like post Endgame. Now that he's a celebrity and he's helped save half the universe and yada yada, and we're gonna get that just to like ground him and explore that part of the character and have it feel like an Ant-Man movie. And then I really do think that once they get sucked into the quantum realm, part of the fun of this is that we're going to get essentially like most of an Ant-Man movie that takes place entirely in the microverse because that's what the quantum realm is. So before I get into my like theory and thoughts and ideas and whatnot, I'll throw out there for the folks at home. The quantum realm does exist in the comics, but in the comics, it is not called the quantum realm. It's straight up called the microverse, which is a much more straightforward name because that's what it is. Um, and it is inhabited by like microscopic societies that exist in this alternate universe that like don't know about our world or like the big world or whatever. And at certain points in different comics, different characters who live in the microverse have been transported back and forth and yada yada. Most famously, this group of characters called the Micronauts. And the Micronauts started, there's like this whole weird situation where they started as toys, and then a Marvel writer like opened like was playing with the toys with his kid or something and thought, hey, these guys are cool. So Marvel got the licensing and made comics set in the Marvel universe like with these toy characters, and that's sort of how the Micronauts and the Microverse and all of that came to be like a part of the mainstream Marvel comic universe. The downside to that in today's time is that now they want to put these things in the movies, but the rights to those characters, since they were in the Marvel universe, have bopped around to like all these different companies like IDW. I think maybe even Dark Horse had them at some point. I could be wrong on that one. Um, but suffice to say, the behind the scenes licensing issues and film rights and all of that are all over the place. And last people knew, the film rights for the Micronauts and the Microverse actually belonged to Hasbro and not Marvel, which is wild. They said a long time ago that they were going to make a Micronauts movie, and then that was like 2015, and then there were no updates. It never happened. Um, However, the beings that we see in the quantum realm in the Quantumania trailer look a lot like the Micronauts.